Grand Theft Auto V is not a glitch-heavy speedrun, and its fairly linear story makes it so the order to complete the main missions as fast as possible has remained basically the same for the past 6 years. However, since the game's release, runners have found thousands of optimizations to enable themselves to move between and complete these missions faster. It therefore should not surprise you to learn that some of these optimizations have garnered attention and become contentious for one reason or another. This video will showcase some of these strategies, explain why they were hotly debated, and detail their status within the runs today.
Davey, how you doing?
Perhaps the most famous contentious time saves were those that came from the use of the iFruit app, something Rockstar developed that could be downloaded to your real-life mobile device. This app enabled you to upgrade your character's main vehicles while you played, and while the app would tell you to go to Los Santos Customs to pick up your vehicle, you in fact could just drive into any mission and the upgrades would be applied. It was therefore literally free time save, as your main vehicle would go faster and you didn't need to change anything about how you were actually playing the game. There were limitations, of course. Vehicle upgrades become accessible as you progress through the game, so you couldn't just immediately buy all the best upgrades. You were also limited by the amount of money that you had, and the app didn't even have all the vehicle customizations. Lastly, you could only upgrade your character's main vehicles, and you surprisingly don't drive those vehicles as much as you might think. But despite these limitations, using the app still equated to a few minutes of time save over the course of the 6-hour run. But you can likely see why this would be contentious. You are doing something outside of the game to impact the speedrun. You are even required to use an entirely different device to do it. But on the other hand, it was something made by the developers that is referenced in the game as something you could use while playing. It is also not unheard of for such things to be allowed in speedruns. Zelda Wind Waker runs used to use a separate Game Boy to use items while doing a trick known as zombie hovering. It was also found that this app could enable you to carry over vehicle customizations from one save file to another. If you made an order with the iFruit app while on one save file, then started a new game, the upgrades you ordered would be applied to your new game's vehicle free of charge, even if the modifications are not even unlocked in the new game. This is a form of New Game Plus, where you do something before starting a new game to affect the new file. So what did we runners do about this app? While the New Game Plus aspect was banned, because all New Game Plus is banned, the standard use of the app sat in limbo for a very long time. The rules just didn't mention it, no ruling had been made, it wasn't banned, therefore by default, you could use it. Eventually a ruling was made and the iFruit app was formally allowed, but a short year later this was changed and it was banned. Ultimately, the year it was allowed showed that runners were not really interested in using it, as only a handful of runners bothered to use it in all that time. There were also concerns that Rockstar wouldn't always support the app, as it relied on their social club services to function, and issues with their servers would often prevent the app from working either before or mid-run. You could even get banned from GTA Online, a separate game, and the app would no longer work for you. It was also seen as a complication for new people starting to do runs, and some versions of GTA V had issues using the app at all. Basically, it was just a headache, and so the community voted again, but this time to ban it. But this didn't immediately end the headaches. The banning of the app caused a year's worth of runs to now be in violation of the rules. But rather than destroy the history of the leaderboards, the runs were allowed to stay up, and the current world record holder beat their old time without using the iFruit app, putting to bed this contentious time in GTA V speedrun history. I'm not even happy. I'm fucking disgusted. In 2017, a runner named Torix found a glitch that he called quick save warping, eventually shortened to just save warping, which has caused arguments between runners ever since. This glitch enables you to warp back to your safe house by saving, loading the game, and holding down a character swap button different from the character that you're loading into. While this discovery was met with much excitement, it was debated whether it should be included in the Classic % category, as it has rules against things like taxi fast traveling in order to create a greater emphasis on driving. Some runners were concerned save warping would ultimately just be used in place of taxis, making the entire category kinda silly, as why would constantly save warping be any different than constantly fast traveling with taxis? After a heated debate, save warping was banned in Classic %, causing some resentment between runners. Surprisingly, no one really thought to actually test how impactful save warping would be on the entire run. A discussion was rushed into before all the facts were known, and this would cause issues many years later. In early 2019, the assessment of the viability of an entirely different strat led to a discussion of how impactful save warping would really be on Classic Percent, and whether it actually made sense for it to be banned. It turned out that save warping was not in any sense the same as fast traveling with taxis, as it is slower to use, and given its fixed destination of your safe house, it was only really viable about 5 times in the entire 6-hour run. It does of course save a few minutes, but it could not overhaul the entire category of Classic Percent or render its existence pointless. But it was already banned, and so some people wanted it to stay banned, believing it would negatively impact their enjoyment of the entire run. A vote was held and the majority voted for it to be unbanned, but some are still dissatisfied with the outcome of the vote to this day. As companies are prone to do, Rockstar released GTA V to PC with different pre-order bonuses for their game. This isn't usually a problem, except in this case they decided that one of these bonuses should be that Franklin will receive $500,000 after completing the first mission. You know, cause that makes sense. Franklin, a poor guy trying to make something of himself, having $500,000 in his back pocket. This bonus cannot be removed, and will be applied to every new game that you start. Of course, you could see the advantages for speedruns. You'd potentially be able to buy a faster vehicle, or buy properties earlier, potentially helping in the 100% category. The issue is that this bonus is exclusive, so new runners cannot get it. Half the runners today have copies of the game where they have access to the 500k, and the other half don't. For the longest time, only an informal agreement existed to not use this bonus, but one day the money was used in a 100% world record, which meant it had to be addressed. The problem was, there wasn't really a simple way to ban the use of the money. Sometimes the game just automatically takes money from you, like in the case of a death which costs funds when you respawn at the hospital. So a person without the bonus could die, respawn at the hospital with $0, but a person with the pre-order bonus would pay some of that bonus to the hospital, which would invalidate their run if a rule was created that said the runners can't go under the 500k. Even worse, the more money you have, the more money you pay for hospital bills. So a person with the bonus will be charged $5,000 to go to the hospital, but a person without the bonus would be charged far less. Eventually, a rule was made that said no one can do something in a run that can't be done with or without the bonus. This seems like a good solution, but it does occasionally lead to some funny misunderstandings. For example, in the all stunt jumps category, a person with the $500,000 bonus will end their run with around $495,000, but the same route can be done by a person without the bonus, the only difference being what the game automatically takes at a hospital. This doesn't stop some people from occasionally contacting mods to suggest that the world record is cheated because it's below 500,000. On the mission scouting the port, we are required to slowly move 2 blue shipping containers one at a time to another location. However, a runner named Dartes found that he could fairly consistently move them both at the same time by pushing one into the other, but other runners attempting to replicate this strategy could very rarely get it to work. Eventually the strategy even stopped working for Dartes, and so it faded into obscurity, the reasons behind the difficulties remaining unsolved. But sometime later it was discovered that this strategy can only be done if your FPS is low. In fact, the lower your FPS, the more reliable the strat became. Unfortunately, you couldn't just lock your FPS low enough or fast enough from the game itself to make this strat viable for more powerful PCs, so this led to a debate over whether using external programs to momentarily lock your FPS mid-run should be allowed. This question unfortunately has never officially been resolved. To this day everyone knows the strat exists, but there's an informal agreement not to do it. Not only do people disagree over whether it should be allowed, but questions of how a rule would even be enforced always bogs down a resolution. Honestly, that the strat is annoying, prone to failure, and only saves a small amount of time likely also makes it so no one really cares to bother arguing about it anymore. When speedrunning on a console, everyone is running on the same hardware, so you don't tend to find disputes over FPS. In fact, many speedruns construct strategies around trying to minimize hardware lag and keep FPS high. But PC of course is a different story. Everyone isn't on the same hardware and higher FPS can give significant advantages. Fallout 76 for example has its movement tied to FPS, so in its early days people would literally look downwards to increase their FPS and therefore run faster. In the Resident Evil 2 remake, the higher your FPS, the higher your damage with your knife. You can therefore do crazy things to increase your FPS and literally destroy bosses. Handling these issues in speedrunning is always contentious, and so GTA V is obviously no different. There is a physics glitch called curb boosting where going up and down on a curb compresses the suspension of your vehicle and gives you a slight boost in speed. This boost, however, is tied to FPS. The higher your FPS, the more of a boost you get. So despite that these boosts are small, they add up over the course of a 6-hour run, and bargain PCs or consoles are not going to get the same speed improvement as someone on a high-end PC. So it was 2 years ago that this was brought to the runners' attention, and immediately problems ensued. If a rule was passed that required runners to cap their FPS, what would happen to the 4 years worth of runs that didn't have the cap? What would the FPS even be capped to? Would PC gamers ever really accept console frame rates when the gameplay feels so much worse than what they used to? Eventually, a 90 FPS cap was imposed, but this cap only lasted a few days. The outcry was so strong that it was removed, as people simply didn't want the complication and preferred a smooth playing experience rather than minimizing hardware differences, and this consensus has not seemed to change to this very day. There are two glitches in Grand Theft Auto V that throw you into the air and are tied to FPS. One that doesn't work on the newest patch, but does work on the patch that we speedrun on, is the dive glitch. By diving into water and changing your camera, you instead dive onto land and launch up into the air. Another glitch, the ladder launch, interestingly found by the OOT runner Skater, still works on the newest patch. By running into a ladder, pressing up to move up one rung, and then immediately attempting to slide down the ladder, you are launched into the air and slide down as if the ladder extended all the way into the sky. The higher your FPS, the higher up you go. While the dive glitch isn't useful yet, the ladder launch is useful on the Mission Nervous Run to get to the top of the water tower quickly, but you need the right amount of FPS to pull this off safely, consistently, and quickly.
Give you the time to plan a route to the gas tank you're rigging up to blow.
Really?
The issue with the ladder launch is that you cannot simply let go at the top of the ladder or stop yourself mid-slide and still be on the ladder. Pressing F does cause you to let go, but you have mixed results. Lowering your refresh rate and enabling VSync in the graphics menu would be enough to get this to work, but the time it would take to change it and then change it back would render the strat pointless. So this is another case of should runners be allowed to momentarily lock their FPS with a hotkey via a third-party program. As with the blue container glitch, this simply remains unanswered to this day. An informal agreement exists just to not do the strat, but maybe one day it will need to be formally addressed. Before I go, I just wanted to shout out a fellow GTA V content creator that I've been watching for a very long time. Whatever 57010 makes unique content showcasing all the features of GTA V we rarely get to see, including a lot of things only possible with modding. I highly recommend checking out his content. And so that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll hopefully be completing some more 100% speedruns soon, and more episodes of Pacifist% should come out eventually. I hope you're all doing well.